Hello everyone, Green Man Bookseller here. It's another book review video and I'm going to be reviewing Hobgoblin by John Coyne. I've probably mispronounced it, and if I have, I'm happy for people to correct me on my pronunciation in the comments. This is a story about this kid called Scott, and he went to a prep school. This is based in the US, and he went to a prep school. The impression I got from the reading the story, the impression I got was that the prep school he went to was the US equivalent of the UK's private boarding school. And when he was at the prep school, he enjoyed playing this game called Hobgoblin, which is a bit similar to, like, similar premise to Dungeons and Dragons. You can play a character and you've got to go off on quests and all the rest. And then one day, Scott's father suddenly dies unexpectedly, and his mum ends up getting this job in another part of the country, working at this old castle place. So obviously, after up sticks and moves, and Scott has to change school, and he goes to this what I describe as a bog standard school. Again, from reading the book, the impression I got of the school that Scott moves to, I'd describe it as the US equivalent of the UK state secondary. So anyway, Scott, he goes to this new school, and obviously he gets bullied quite a bit, partly because he's the new boy, and partly because he's into playing Hobgoblin, which is quite popular at the prep school that he went to. But at the bog standard state secondary, they're not into that kind of thing. It's a sporty school, into the soccer and all the rest. And yeah, Scott, he doesn't fit in. Now, the castle that they move to, that his mum gets a job at, it's got some secrets, some dark secrets. Now, as the story goes on, the culmination of the story is that Scott ends up hosting a school Halloween party at the castle, and it's a kind of a way of trying to ingratiate himself into the school scene, to try and stop being the outsider, the weird kids, potentially make friends. And so, although the other kids turn up, they do come along. And what they're doing, sort of, at this Halloween party, they're kind of playing this. They all agree to do this kind of Hobgoblin game, play a game of Hobgoblin, where they're all like dressed up, and Scott's giving them quests to do and that kind of thing. And during this Halloween party, the secrets of the castle start revealing themselves, and it all ends in a bit of a bad way. So that's the general gist of the story. This book, it had some bad points and some good points for me personally. I'll sort of touch on the bad points. This is bad. This is what were bad points for me. I mean, this was written in the 80s, and it's a very dated. It comes across very dated. It's a story. It's very much a product of its time. It does, and for the most part, it didn't bother me. But there were the odd occasion where it was a bit too. I personally found it a bit too jarringly dated, the story. And there were the other bad point for me was there was a couple of times throughout the story where it was a bit too, I think the author had been a bit too self-indulgent. He's sort of gone off. The story there's a chunk of the story where Scott was describing to the kids at the new school that he was going to how to play Hobgoblin, and it went on a bit too long, and I just thought, is it really necessary to have all this descriptiveness of how to play Hobgoblin? And I just felt the novel could have been a bit tighter. They didn't necessarily need all that information, and there was times where a part of me was thinking, this is a bit too long-winded. This is not all necessary. All this information, a bit too much of an info dump. Yeah, so that was a bit of a downside for me. But the good points, the upside. Now, when I read the blurb on the back, I was expecting the story to go in a particular direction, but in reality, the story went in a completely different direction to what I was expecting it to. I love it when a story does that, because it takes you by surprise. You know, you if you don't, if you're caught unexpected, if it goes off in a completely different direction to what you're expecting it to, that is a very good thing. So yeah, that was good. So it had some flaws, this story. Flaws that I'm not sure I could overlook, but overall, it won me over. Yeah, I'd give it maybe 6.5, 7 out of 10. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't give it more than 7 out of 10. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I'm not sure I'd necessarily rave about it. I'm not sure I'd be in a rush to recommend it. But at the same time, I'm not sure I'd necessarily criticise and condemn it. I suppose kind of a middle of the road kind of book. But anyway, guys, that's my review of Hobgoblin. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll tell you, if you've read this book, feel free to drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought of it. And on that note, I'll bring this video to an end and say thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. And in the meantime, stay safe. Happy reading.